Hey y'all, it's Kate from Heritage Business Services. I'm actually up at my kids' school. I'm manning the front desk today because our whole front office is out for COVID. And as I was working here today, I just kind of had this thought that I wanted to share with y'all some information about how I tithe as a business owner, how we tithe as a family. So that's what this video is going to be about. This all came about because during the first week of January, I needed to make an estimated tax payment. We're fortunate enough to be in a place where we were able to hire tax planning help. My business pays for that, by the way. Tax planning and tax preparation is a business expense. But we knew that I was going to have to make a tax payment based on what it looked like my December numbers were going to be. And so that's what kind of got this all started. It threw off my normal tithing routine. So if I'm looking to the side, it's because I made some notes and I want to make sure I cover everything. So it was as I logged onto this IRS payment portal that I remembered that I needed to tithe on that money. So whenever you take money out of your business to pay estimated tax payments, those are distributions, and we tithe on our distributions. And I thought this would illustrate sort of how we approach tithing in our household. We definitely approach tithing as a household. Our finances are combined, and I highly recommend that if you are married. I'm going to keep this video pretty tactical, so I don't want to outline the theology of tithing here. That's a great discussion, but we can save that for another time. The assumptions we're going to make for this video is that Christian principle is that we should tithe 10% of our income. So tithing 10% of our income has definitely been a journey for our family, and becoming a business owner really affected how we thought about that. I started off as a sole proprietor where I didn't have payroll. So when I took an owner's draw, we would tithe on that amount because there was no taxes out of it. So if I took $1,000 out of my business bank account and send it to personal, we would send 100 to the church. It was kind of at that point that we really were convicted that tithing on gross pay was what we wanted to strive for and aim for. And it was really the cleanest as a sole proprietor when you're taking owner's draw, because there's no deductions out of that. And it kind of made us realize that we should probably be doing the same thing for the W-2 income as well. So it was once I started to make money as a sole proprietor that we realized that my husband's paycheck from the Navy, we should probably also tithe on that gross income as well, instead of the net income, which we had been doing, but that had a lot of deductions in it. And so we were feeling the Lord just sway us to increase our giving and consider the tithe on gross income. I'd say it's actually been really freeing because we don't have to do any sort of mental gymnastics based on like how much are we putting into retirement or what our withholdings are, because all of that can change how much gets deposited into your bank account each month. So here's the tactics of how we actually give. My husband gets a paycheck twice a month. It has a lot of different line items for different kind of like flight pay and housing allowance and all that, and we just take the total gross amount and tithe on that 10%. For his paycheck specifically, because it can kind of fluctuate because he gets raises depending on how many years of service he has and whether he promotes within a year. What we do for him is we actually look it up manually on his pay stub and calculate that, and we actually write a check and take it to church to put in the offering plate because we want our kids to see that, and we don't want to have all of our giving automated because we like that visual learning for the kids. So now that brings us to me. So when I first started off as a sole proprietor, I would take distributions every once in a while, not regularly, because my income was kind of sporadic depending on whether I brought a new client or not. And so just whenever we had a reason to, I would take an owner's draw and we would tithe on that. So for that kind of giving, the point I want to make is we opted to not have it be whenever I got revenue. So if someone paid me $1,000 for a bookkeeping cleanup job, I didn't tithe at that point. That would just sit in my business bank account until such time as I took it and put it into my personal account. That's what we felt good about. Eventually all the money will come out of my business bank account. Either if I ever shut down my business, all of that will probably be distributed at that point, or if I keep going for decades and decades and retire and eventually sell the business, those assets would go with the sale potentially. So it's still going to be tithed on. One thing to note about that method, though, tithing on distributions rather than revenue when you're a sole proprietor, is you do have to really think about how you're stewarding all your expenses. So it could be easy to be kind of spendy with your business expenses, maybe buying things that you don't necessarily need. And every time you do that, that's less money that you will eventually have to be able to take out of your bank account and tithe on. And so it's just the whole stewardship issue, being thoughtful and prayerful about how you're handling your expenses inside your business too does affect how you tithe if you tithe on your distributions. One thing you can do is kind of flip it and think, the better I am managing my business and the more I can reduce my expenses, the more generous I will be able to be. And that's a kind of a positive way of thinking about it. But then eventually my business grew to a sufficient level where it made sense for me to become an S Corp. And so once I made that S Corp election, I had to start taking payroll. So I set myself up with a reasonable salary, and I get paid the same amount each paycheck. And so that was really easy to automate, and I don't really ever change that salary. So what we do for that is we actually have an automatic draft set from our personal bank account where my paycheck gets deposited, and we have an automatic system where the personal bank pays to the church every month. So that is going to really help the church with cash flow. Like if we ever forget to write that check for my husband's paycheck and let it build up and have to write a bigger check later, that's fine, and we still will tithe what we're supposed to tithe, but that consistent cash flow is something that a church has to manage as well. And so by having my paycheck tithe set up automated, we are able to help the church in that way. So that just happens, and we don't really have to fiddle with that at all. We set it up one time in our personal bank account, and it's continuing to go on. And I will say we made sure that it was done in a way where the church was not going to get hit with any fees. So we set it up where the way that our personal bank sends money to our church does not cause any merchant services fees to be borne by our church. But as an S Corp, I can still take owner's distributions, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. That's above and beyond the salary. Those withdrawals typically get special tax treatment where they're not subject to the payroll taxes, and so it's a really advantageous way to set up and run your business if you own your own business. But every time I take a distribution, I have to remember to tithe on that. And that's what happened with me recently with that payment to the IRS that I owed. That is considered a distribution, and I had to remember to tithe on it. So whether you're taking the distribution for yourself or to pay the tax man, think about tithing on it. So let's just set up an example, quick, easy math. Let's say you think you owe the IRS $9,000. Then take a distribution of $10,000 to pay that. So you can tithe the $1,000 10% tithe, and you still have the $9,000 to send to the IRS. So that's how our family does it. I'm curious if you are a tither, how you handle it. I would love to hear in the comments below. Also, if you see any flaws in my system, please chime in. I'm always up for a debate. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And so I would love to learn how you handle it, how you've been convicted to handle it, and where you have gotten that support to make your decisions about how to do it. If you aren't subscribed to this YouTube channel, would love to have you do that. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment below. That really helps me as I'm building this YouTube channel. If you ever need to talk bookkeeping, please reach out. I specialize in helping folks with FreshBooks for their bookkeeping software. I'm Kate Josephine Johnson, owner of Heritage Business Services, and I help businesses build their business legacy.